Hey there, my wedding planning friends, and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for clicking on my video. I'm a wedding planner based in Montana, and I make weekly videos on wedding planning tips and advice. So today's video, we're talking all about wedding rentals and decor. What should you purchase versus what should you rent for your wedding? So first, let's talk about the items that are best to purchase over rent for your wedding. Number one, your wedding attire. This is primarily geared towards the bride. There are some good options for renting when it comes to the bridal party and sometimes even for the groom, but for the couple themselves, we typically recommend purchasing over renting for your wedding attire. You may want to be able to have that attire later down the road and have it as like a keepsake or something to give to a child down the road. And if you're thinking about renting over purchasing solely from a price standpoint, renting isn't always necessarily cheaper. It can be for sure, but you're still likely going to be paying a pretty decent amount of money to rent, whether it's your wedding dress or rent a suit. And then when you rent, you're just kind of out that money. At least if you are looking at it from a price standpoint, if you purchase your wedding dress, you can sell it and likely get a lot of your money back. Probably be in a better financial position doing that than you were to just rent a wedding dress. Also, there's a lot of things that happen on your wedding day, a lot of things that could happen if it's a muddy, rainy day. You can't always expect your attire to be in the condition that it needs to be returnable. So just keep that in mind as well. Decor. When it comes to decor, purchasing over renting is typically better for chargers. These can be extremely pricey to rent, and a lot of times, depending on the type of charger you're looking for, which, let me back up. If you are unfamiliar with what a charger is, that is the round plate, oversized looking plate that will go underneath an actual dinner plate on your table settings. A lot of times couples will choose to have a charger to add a design element to your table settings, or to be a placeholder for your dinner plates if you're having a buffet and you're choosing to have your plates on the buffet table rather than set on the table, but still want to have somewhat of a completed table setting look on your guest tables. So when it comes to chargers, typically it can be cheaper to purchase the chargers depending on the charger style. Again, you can always sell these after the event if that's an option for you, and that way you can make a little bit of money back and not have to be storing hundreds of chargers. When it comes to decor, as kind of a general rule of thumb, you want to identify what your priority is. Is it convenience or is it to save money? If your priority is to do things as inexpensively as possible, that's going to be your driving force when it comes to choosing rentals over purchasing, and just do your research on what makes more sense financially there. If it is convenience, if your priority, if you are having a destination wedding and your priority is convenience, even if you're not having a destination wedding and you just don't want to be responsible for hauling in and out all of these decor pieces, then renting is 100% the way to go. And you can also pay the rental company to deliver, so that way you choose what items you're going to need and they will bring them out to your venue and then bring them away from your venue whenever needed. This way you're not having to figure out transportation, make sure you have room in a vehicle, and actually do the hauling yourself if you just have a delivery or a rental company deliver for you. If you're having a destination wedding, this is typically the route that most of my couples will go, so that you're not having to bring decorations across state lines or figure out where you're going to store them after the fact or get them back after your wedding, and all those little details that need to be figured out when it comes to supplying a lot of your own decor and rentals. Another driving factor might be if you don't have a lot of storage after your event. So if you are thinking about purchasing a lot of things because they're cheaper, think about storing them prior to your wedding and also after your wedding. So even if you do plan to sell a lot of your items, there will likely be a period of time before that is actually able to happen where you will need some place to store these items. If you live in an apartment or if you live somewhere where you don't have a garage or a spare room or a place to store all these random wedding items, then you likely want to opt for renting. Keep in mind, everything that you bring in decor-wise and rental-wise has to be brought back out. So items that are typically better to rent are linens. Linens are typically cheaper to rent than they are to purchase. And again, you're not going to be stuck with these random linens afterwards. And those are more difficult to offload after a wedding, as most couples are going to want brand new fresh linens. This goes for tablecloths, napkins, runners, anything else you might need for in the way of a linen. When it comes to renting linens too, this is a way to really ensure the quality. I know there's a lot of online resources out there nowadays where you can purchase your linens, and it can be attractive because they are pretty inexpensive. However, I have seen all the different types of linens, and typically when you are purchasing the linens online that are cheaper, it is very apparent that they are cheaper. You kind of get what you pay for. And when you're renting from an actual linen company or rental company that supplies linens, you can really ensure the quality of those linens are going to be high for your wedding day. Any candles or candle holders, it's usually more cost effective to rent, especially if you're going to have a lot of them scattered throughout your guest tables and just in different areas of your wedding as decorations. It is typically more cost effective to rent these items than to purchase them. Same goes for any upgraded china. If you are wanting to have something more than just disposable plates or more than just a basic china, highly recommend finding a rental company that has items that you enjoy rather than purchasing specialty glassware or plates or flatware, primarily for the reason of hauling them back out afterwards. Maybe you have a place to store them and bringing them out to the wedding isn't that big of a deal, but when you don't have rental items, if they are personal items that you're bringing in, then you run into the issue of who is going to clean and pack them back up and bring them back at the end of the wedding day. And that's just a ton of work for you to have to do following your wedding. Any lighting is usually better to do renting from a convenience standpoint. So if you're doing perimeter lighting in a tent or doing some sort of hanging drape lighting within a tent or in some kind of structure over your wedding ceremony or wedding reception, if you are renting lighting, they will typically install this for you, and that is a huge time saver, and also, again, will ensure the quality if you're not super familiar with hanging lighting or making sure that it's going to be secure enough to last the entire day. Not to mention, the cleanup after the fact will not fall on you as well if you're having a delivery or rental company set up and install the lighting as well as take it down. This also goes for any tents or dance floors. Installation is typically included with these items as well, which is not only a time saver for you, but a huge headache saver. This can be a very, very large project, especially if it's a large tent. And it's best to just have the professionals set them up so that you can ensure that everything is going to withstand the duration of your wedding. Additional seating, primarily lounge type seating, is also best to rent. This is primarily for the storage and delivery aspect, as these are large items that are difficult to store and, again, going to have to figure out how to get them on site and then out of sight at the end of the day or the following day. But also from a financial standpoint, it is much, much, much more cost effective to rent any plush soft seating, lounge seating, rugs, anything like that, than it is to purchase it. Ultimately, a lot of these decisions will likely come down to what your priority is. Like I said, is that convenience or is that from a price standpoint? And you want to be aware of any additional delivery costs for your particular venue. If they have an additional travel fee that is outside of what their kind of standard delivery fee is, if your venue is a little bit further out, try and rent your items from the same place if you can. That way you are eliminating multiple travel fees and you can just have them all under one umbrella of a travel fee, all coming from one spot. And if you do choose to purchase a lot of your items, just make sure that you are creating a list of where all of these items are going to be coming from, a checklist to make sure that you pack everything on the wedding day, and a plan for where these are going to go following your wedding. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, please like and subscribe to get weekly videos on wedding planning tips and advice, and we'll see you next week.